It's June 24th, and today is the last day we will set up cell builders for this season. Tomorrow on Tuesday we will graft, and then a week from next Friday we will put these cells in existing nukes that already have queens in them that were mated a month ago. And the queens in the nukes that we collect will be used for finishing our requeening. We're almost done requeening everything. And then the nukes that are getting the cells will become overwintered nukes. There's enough time for those queens to mate and establish a nice little 5-frame nuke for winter. Kind of glad we're done with this phase. Like I said in the last video, we enjoy making queens. We like the process, but it sure does get in the way. And right now, when we're trying to deal with sourwood supers and harvesting, and then short time from now trying to get all of our mite treatments in a hurry, we don't need to continue making more nukes and more queens. I've also learned over the years, I used to make nukes in August, and I have kind of taken an opinion on that it's best not to. I'd rather leave the existing mother colonies in the best shape possible for fall and winter, and then create more nukes in the spring. So our last nukes are actually made in the month of July. We've been putting on fresh supers in this bee yard. We're in just out of Dillard, Georgia, on Betty's Creek. And they've been making little basswood honey. This is a basswood tree. As you can see by this picture, it's about done. And even though we're shaking fresh basswood nectar today, I feel comfortable putting on fresh empty supers for sourwood because that's just a day away from being over. I guess basswoods like water. I see a lot of them along these creeks. I suppose they're probably in the woods too, but I see the majority of them along little waterways like this. There's a fair amount in the southern Appalachians, not as much as up in Wisconsin and Michigan and places like that, but it definitely affects us. We can make, I don't know, we can make 20 pounds in a good year. And then the trick is to keep it out of our sourwood, because our sourwood is just a day or two from starting in this location, and the basswood is a day or two from ending. So, like I mentioned in an earlier video, I can't transition every yard in 2 days, so we do what we have to do. We might get a teaspoon or two of basswood in this location in our sourwood supers, but I can live with that. It's very light. Basswood honey is very light, probably even lighter than sourwood, so it doesn't mess the color up. And this is a wonderful location. These guys are backing up. They don't want to be in the picture. Bee yard's just over that little hill right there. It's a nice bee yard, wonderful location, very picturesque. Again, we're at the upper end of Betty's Creek out of Dillard, Georgia, very close to the North Carolina line. North Carolina, that is facing north right there. The North Carolina line is probably a quarter mile away. I've had a bee yard in this area for a long time, probably, oh gosh, maybe 28 years. I've always done fairly good up here. It took me a while to figure out this basswood thing. I'd always see these bees up here making honey when the bees down south were making none, and it took me a few years to figure out that it's actually basswood honey. I like basswood honey. It's different, it's unique. Some people don't like it, but I do. So that's a basswood tree. I'm in Mountain City, Georgia. I've been watching these colonies bring in a little bit of yellow pollen. Of course, as soon as I sit down in front of a colony, they quit bringing pollen in. But anyway, this colony's bringing in yellow pollen, and I know it's corn pollen. And there's a field of field corn just north of here, and I just wanted to talk about that for a moment. Field corn I've never had an issue with. I know some people talk about neonicotinoids on the seeds and all that stuff, and I guess there's some truth to that, but I have never had an issue around field corn. But if you get around sweet corn in this area, you got problems. In the last week I have moved 2 yards to a different location because they were growing sweet corn within a quarter mile. And not only were they growing sweet corn, but they were growing successive crops. In other words, one crop would tassel, and 10 days or 2 weeks later another crop would tassel, and then another crop would tassel. And there's a local farmer here that has a strategy of having sweet corn coming off in successive plantings. And I get it, he's got a fruit stand, a produce stand, and that's his way of always having sweet corn, but boy, it's devastating for a beehive, because not only do they get poisoned, they get poisoned over and over and over. And I don't know what chemical he's using, but we do see, in those cases, we do see dead bees on the ground, and my feelings are, for every bee you see on the ground dead, you're probably not seeing 10 more that never made it home. Okay, there's a little pollen coming in there. It's fluffy, it's light yellow, it's corn. So it's not super good pollen, but that's what they will do if there's not premium pollen available for them. Just like bees are smart enough to bring in the highest sugar content in a nectar source, in other words, they'll work one over another because it's better. They do the same thing with pollen, and corn pollen is somewhat inferior. All wind-blown pollen tends to be that way, but they just don't have any other pollen right now, so they're working the heck out of the corn. Thankfully, this yard is into some field corn and not sweet corn. We just put on a few supers for sourwood. These were late nukes. They were started with queen cells just 2 months ago, and they're just barely big enough to make some honey. If it's a good flow, they'll fill that super. If it's not a good flow, I probably won't make any. Didn't get up very gracefully, did I? If it's not a good flow, I probably won't make much here. They've already got a few pounds in them, so look at there, Mike. As soon as I stand up, they're bringing in a bunch of pollen. Yes. I was trying to take a good picture of that. See if I get close up here. Yeah, there's a little sweet corn or field corn pollen coming in. Yeah. Cloudy, overcast in Mountain City. Sourwood's just barely beginning, just barely opening up. Let's see, what is the date today? The 28th? 28th. So it's the 28th of June, which means it's about 6 or 7 days early in this location. Usually this location turns on about the 4th of July. I've had this yard for a long time. It's a small yard, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pallets, so it's no more than 32 colonies when all the pallets are full. And I like that. I like the smaller yards. Anyway, there's a nice poplar tree right there that flowered heavily this spring. Now it's got the seed buds on it. I've shown this sign before. Mountain City, Georgia is just south of the North Carolina border on 441, and if you're driving through Mountain City, you'll see my sign. Our shop is just 9 miles south of here. We've got a lot of signs, they work. Well, our observation hive is filling up with nectar. The beginning of our sourwood flow seems to be helping them out a lot. This is an 8-frame observation hive. It's 2 frames deep and 4 deep frames high. And right now, the top 2 layers of frames, which would be 4 frames total, is honey and then fresh nectar. And then the bottom 2 tiers, which would be 4 frames, is brood. So they're doing well, they're in pretty good shape. I would expect in the next 2 weeks to them kind of plug this situation down to where they only have brood in the bottom 2 frames. And the second tier, 2 frames, fill up with nectar. It's mostly sealed brood right now, so as that sealed brood hatches off, I would expect them to backfill it with nectar, and that'll be just fine. Sourwood honey is actually really good food to overwinter on. It doesn't have a lot of undigestible elements. It's very low in dextrose, so it doesn't crystallize, so we may not have to feed them at all to get through the winter. Anyway, just wanted to report on our observation hive. They're doing good and bringing in some nectar. It's raining. It's the 29th of June. We got a little rain. The only problem is it's just supposed to be a little. It's not forecasted to be very much, but I'll take anything I can get right now. It's been extremely dry. I've been talking about how dry it is and our sourwood trees are blooming. This might help a little. There's definitely nothing heavy enough to beat the blossoms off the trees or anything like that. Actually, it kind of seems like it's coming to an end. I don't think we've even got a 1/4 inch yet, but Again, every little bit will help. Maybe it'll rain tonight too. But we're sure glad to see the rain.